I woke up in a box, couldn't move, couldn't breathe, and all I could hear was dirt hitting wood. Before I go on, make sure to subscribe and like this video. It helps me keep sharing stories like this. Anyway, yeah, a box, buried, and my son was the one holding the shovel. His name's Eric, my only boy. I raised him myself after his daddy passed. Gave him everything I had. The house, the savings, the kind of loyalty only a mother can give. Guess he figured that meant I didn't need it anymore. See, Eric was slick. He knew how to talk, always smiling, always saying the right thing. I used to brag about him. Told everyone he was gonna be somebody, and he was for a while. Nice job, nice car, new wife. That girl Crystal who always smelled like money. Then one day, he shows up with a pie and a stack of papers. Said it was just routine stuff. Wanted to help me get organized. Yeah, I should have known better. But when it's your own son, you don't think like that. You just sign. Weeks later, the bank letters started showing his name instead of mine. Then the power bill. Then the title on the house. Every time I asked, he brushed it off. System's just updating, Ma. Don't worry about it. I stopped sleeping right after that. My gut knew something was off. Next thing I know, he's telling me we're going on a little trip. You need some fresh air, Ma, he said. Get out of town for a bit. We drove for hours. Forest roads, no streetlights, barely any cell service. I started feeling dizzy halfway there. Told him I felt weird. He said it was just the heat. Last thing I remember, the car stopped. He told me to rest, and I did. When I woke up, I couldn't see a damn thing. Couldn't move my arms. My face hit wood when I tried to sit up. I knew exactly what it was. I screamed till my throat bled. Pounded till my nails broke. Then I heard him, my son. Calm as if he was changing a tire. Make sure it's deep enough, he said. The dirt started falling heavier. That sound, that dull thud, it doesn't leave your head. I must have passed out again, 'cause next thing I know, I'm smelling flowers, lilies, hearing whispers, someone crying soft. I opened my eyes, and there were faces all around, pale, shocked, backing away like they'd seen the devil. Guess they kinda had. I sat up slow, cloth falling off me, and there he was. Eric, my son, mouth open, eyes wide. Didn't say much. I just looked at him and said, "You buried the wrong woman. Boy." He went white as chalk. And that's how I found out I'd woken up at my own funeral. After that day, not a single person in that church could look me in the eye. Some folks screamed when I sat up. Others ran for the doors, dropping purses and shoes. The pastor fainted right there on the pulpit. And Eric? He just froze. Before I go any further, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. It helps me tell more stories like this one. Now back to that church. They had me laid out in the front, candles all around, soft music playing, and when I sat up it went dead quiet, except for one old lady whispering, "Lord have mercy, she's back." I could feel the stiff white cloth still around my shoulders. I pulled it off, sat up slow. My body ached all over. My chest, my hands, even my teeth. I blinked a few times, looked around. People were standing there frozen like time had stopped. But Eric, my boy, he wasn't moving. He was pale, sweating, holding Crystal's hand like his life depended on it. She looked like she wanted to disappear. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I just stared at him. "Where's my house keys?" I said. My voice came out rough, like gravel. He didn't answer. He just shook his head a little, muttered something about me needing rest. Rest. After what he did, they called an ambulance, said I must have been misdiagnosed, said the coroner made a mistake, but I knew better. There wasn't no mistake. Eric had planned it all. They said I'd been buried for less than an hour when the power went out at the cemetery and delayed the last bit of soil. That's the only reason I wasn't dead for real. That blackout saved me. After the hospital, folks treated me like I was cursed. Nobody came by, not even the church ladies who used to bring casseroles. Eric showed up once. Brought some flowers, couldn't look me in the face. "Ma," he said, "you need rest. Don't talk to anyone about this. People will think you're confused." I stared at him. "You sure you want folks thinking that, Eric? Or you just scared of what I might say?" He didn't answer, just left the flowers on the table and walked out. I sat there, staring at those damn lilies, thinking about everything he'd taken. My house, my money, my peace. That night, I packed a small bag and took a bus to the other side of town. Checked into one of those weekly motels, the kind with flickering lights and thin walls. I didn't tell nobody where I went. I stayed quiet, listened, learned. See, once folks think you're dead, they start talking. And I had a neighbor, old guy named Russ, used to cut lawns for Eric, who liked his whiskey more than he should. One night he told me things I wasn't supposed to hear. Said Eric bragged about it. Told him he'd finally taken care of things. Said he had paperwork solid, house clean, and no loose ends. Russ laughed when he said it, not realizing who he was talking to. I didn't laugh. After that, I made some calls. Found out the house was already on the market, listed under Eric's name, asking price high enough to wipe out all his debts. And then it hit me. The money wasn't the only reason. He wanted the insurance, too. The life policy his daddy had taken out years ago. Still active. It paid out after proof of death. And I guess a funeral counts as proof. By the time I showed back up at my old house, it wasn't mine anymore. New locks, for sale sign gone, fancy car parked in the driveway. Eric and Crystal were inside, living like nothing ever happened. I watched from across the street, sitting in Russ's truck. Could see them through the window. Eating dinner, laughing, sipping wine. And for the first time, I felt nothing. Not hate, not pain, not fear. Just a kind of cold clarity. I realized I had already been buried once. What could he do to me now that he hadn't already tried? I waited 2 weeks. Watched his routine. He left every morning at 8, came back around 6. Crystal stayed home most days, scrolling her phone, drinking her fancy coffee, walking around like she owned everything. One morning, I showed up right after he left. Crystal opened the door halfway, her face dropping like she'd seen a ghost. Which, technically, she had. "Miss Harper?" she stammered. You're... I pushed the door open and walked right past her. "Yeah, I'm real. Move." The look on her face, priceless. I sat on the couch I'd bought 20 years ago, the one she'd covered with some ugly designer throw. Looked around my own living room and it felt strange, like walking into a dream somebody else had stolen. "Where's Eric?" I asked. She swallowed hard. He's at work." "Good. Then I'll talk to you." I told her straight. I knew everything. The signatures, the insurance, the plan. I even told her what he said about no loose ends. Her face went pale. "He said that?" "More than once," I said. "You think he's done with me? You might want to ask yourself if you're next." She didn't say another word, just grabbed her purse and left. By the time Eric came home that night, she was gone. I was sitting on his porch with a cup of cold coffee, waiting. He froze when he saw me. "Ma, what the hell?" I cut him off. "You're good at digging holes, boy. You ever wonder what it's like to fall in one?" He looked nervous, glanced around. "You can't be here." "Oh, I can. It's my name on the damn deed." He hesitated. "Not anymore," I smiled. "That's where you're wrong." See, while he was out thinking I was dead, I went to a lawyer. Old family friend who owed me a favor. Turns out fake signatures on a living person's documents don't hold up too well. It wasn't easy. But I got the papers reversed. Took weeks. Quiet ones. When the notice came through, Eric's name vanished from every record. House, bank, insurance, all of it. And the best part, he didn't even know yet. That night, I didn't say much else. Just stood up, left him sitting there, his face pale and his hands shaking. I walked back down that driveway feeling lighter than I had in years. But peace? No, that wasn't coming anytime soon. Because when a man's willing to bury his own mama alive, he doesn't just quit. He plans again, and I could feel it in my bones. He wasn't done with me yet. 3 weeks after that night on the porch, things got quiet. Too quiet. Eric didn't call, didn't show up, didn't even send one of his snide little messages. I figured maybe he'd finally gotten the hint. I should have known better. Before I go on, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. It helps me keep these stories going anyway. I started fixing up the old house again. Replaced the curtains, painted the porch, even planted some flowers out front. Just like before all this mess, the air started feeling normal again. Like maybe I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. Then one morning the mailbox was gone. Just ripped off the post. No wind, no accident. Clean gone. Later that same day, I noticed the garden hose was cut clean through. A few nights after that, someone rattled my doorknob around midnight. When I opened the curtains, there was no one there. At first, I told myself it was paranoia, but deep down I knew that man. Eric didn't take losing well, so I did what I always do. I stayed calm, watched, waited. One Friday evening, I heard a car pull up slow in the driveway. No lights on. I peeked through the blinds. It was him, sitting there, engine idling, cigarette glowing in the dark. I stood by the window watching him. He didn't get out, just sat there smoking, one hand tapping on the steering wheel. Then he drove off. The next morning, the lock on the back door was scratched up, like someone had been testing keys. That's when I called the lawyer again. Told him everything. He said he'd file for a restraining order, but we both knew that kind of paper doesn't stop someone who's already dug a grave for you once. So I made a plan. First thing, I put up cameras. Nothing fancy, just enough to see what I needed to. Then I went down to the police station, told them straight. My son tried to kill me once. He's lurking around again. They didn't believe me at first. They gave me that polite look folks give when they think you're confused. I showed them the old case files, the paperwork from the hospital, and that shut him up quick. A week later, I caught him on camera, middle of the night, creeping along the side of the house with a flashlight. He looked thinner, rougher, eyes darting like a man running from ghosts. I didn't go out, didn't yell, just sat in my chair, watching him on the screen. Next morning, I printed the footage, handed it to the cops. They said they'd look into it. 2 days later, my car tires were slashed. That's when I decided to take matters into my own hands. quiet, steady, like he taught me when he used to help in the yard as a kid. Measure twice, dig once, he'd say. So that's what I did. I found out through an old friend at the bank that Eric was deep in debt again. Lost money in some shady business deal. House payments overdue. He was drowning. And he figured if he couldn't get the property from me legally anymore, maybe he could scare me into signing it over again. Or worse. I didn't tell the cops about the next part. They wouldn't have believed it anyway. One night, about a month after I moved back in, I woke up to a sound. Faint but sharp. Metal scraping. I stayed still, listening. There it was again, from the kitchen. I grabbed the old baseball bat I kept by my bed, walked real slow, feet quiet on the floor. When I turned the corner, I saw the back door open, and Eric standing there. He froze when he saw me, eyes wild, hair a mess, breathing heavy. "Ma," he said, voice shaking. I needed to talk." I didn't lower the bat. "You came through the back door for a talk?" He stepped closer. "You don't understand. Everything's falling apart. Crystal left. The bank's after me. I need your help." I looked at him for a long time. "Help? You mean the kind where I sign something and end up in a box again?" He flinched. "I made a mistake, okay? I didn't mean—" "Yeah, you did," I said. "You meant every bit of it." He started crying then, or at least pretending to. Dropped to his knees right there on my kitchen floor. "Please, Ma, I got nowhere else to go." I should have thrown him out. Should have called the cops. But something about seeing him like that. Broken. Desperate. It hit a nerve I didn't want to admit I still had. So I told him he could sleep in the guest room for one night. Just one. He thanked me, hugged me, even said, "You're still my mama." I didn't hug him back. That night I didn't sleep. I locked my door and kept that bat next to me. Around 2 a.m. I heard footsteps in the hall. Slow, careful. The kind of steps people take when they're not supposed to be walking. Then I heard the door handle move. Mine. I didn't wait. I swung it open fast, bat ready. He jumped back, eyes wide. "What the hell you doing?" I asked. He stammered. "Just checking if you were okay." "Yeah, I'm fine," I said. "Go to bed before I make you see stars." He laughed it off, went back down the hall. But I knew right then. He wasn't here for help. He was looking for something. Next morning he was gone. So was my purse, the spare car key, and my safe deposit box receipt. I spent that whole day calling the bank, changing locks, freezing accounts. He didn't just want my property anymore. He wanted whatever he could grab before it was too late. That evening the cops called. They'd found my car in a ditch outside town. No Eric, just his phone, cracked and blood-stained on the seat. They asked if I wanted to file a missing person report. I told them no. I figured the earth would handle him this time. But a week later I saw him again. Not in person, but on TV, local news. They said a man had been arrested for fraud, insurance scams, and identity theft. The mugshot flashed up. Eric, same eyes, same smirk. Like he still couldn't believe the world had caught up to him. I turned off the TV, sat there in silence for a long time. Didn't feel joy, didn't feel hate, just tired. I poured myself a glass of water, went out to the porch, and watched the sun set behind the house I'd almost died for. And I realized something then. I hadn't survived because I was strong. I'd survived because life just wasn't done teaching me yet. But I knew one thing for sure. If Eric ever got out of that jail, I'd be ready. Eric stayed locked up for almost 2 years. He wrote a few letters during that time. Mostly excuses dressed up as apologies. Said prison had changed him. That he'd found faith. That he wanted to make things right. I didn't answer any of them. Before I go on, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video. It helps me share more stories like this. Anyway, when he finally got out, I heard it from Russ before anyone else. He saw Eric downtown, thinner, older, looking like a man who'd run out of luck. I figured he'd move on, start over somewhere far away. But one night, around 3 in the morning, someone knocked on my door. Not loud, just steady. 3 knocks. I didn't turn on the light. Just waited. "Ma," he said. His voice was lower, cracked. "Please, I just need to talk." I stood behind the door, hand resting on the knob. "There ain't nothing left to say, Eric." "I got nowhere to go," he said. "I don't want money. I don't know what else to do." I waited a long time before answering. "You should have thought of that before you put me in that box." Silence. Then footsteps, slow, fading down the porch. I didn't open the door. Not that night. Not ever again. Weeks went by. I started hearing things around town. How Eric was sleeping in his car. How nobody wanted to hire him. How Crystal had remarried and moved out of state. I didn't feel sorry for him. But I didn't feel proud either. Just empty. Then one morning I went out to the front yard and found something sitting on the porch steps. A shoebox taped shut, with my name written in his handwriting. I stared at it for a while, then took it inside, opened it on the kitchen table. Inside were a few things. My old wedding ring he'd pawned years ago, a stack of photos from when he was little, and a note. It just said, "Ma, I don't know how to fix what I did, but I know I can't live with it. You were right. Some holes are too deep. I'm sorry, no address, no signature, just that." 3 days later, they found his car by the river, empty. No body. No sign of a struggle. Nothing. Some folks said he ran. Some said he drowned. Cops called it inconclusive. I called it karma. After that, life got quiet again. I kept to myself, didn't talk much. Didn't go to church. Folks still whispered about me. The woman who came back from the grave. The one whose own son tried to kill her. I didn't mind. Let 'em talk. I spent my mornings tending the garden, evenings watching the sunset from the porch. The air felt cleaner somehow, like the house could finally breathe again. Sometimes I'd find myself talking out loud, like he was still there. Not to forgive him. That wasn't something I could do. But maybe to understand him. One evening I went down to the basement, just cleaning out old boxes, and I found the shovel. The same one he used that night. Rusted. Dirt still clinging to the edge. I stared at it for a long while, then carried it out back and buried it deep. Handle first. Blade down. Figured it ought to stay in the ground where it belonged. And as I packed the dirt over it, I said out loud, "This time, I'm the one burying you." The wind picked up gentle but cold, and I swear I could almost hear his voice in it. That soft, teenage version of him saying, "Love you, Ma." I didn't answer, just turned, went back inside, and locked the door. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Not peaceful, not healed, just done. And that's the truth of it. If you ever find yourself trusting someone so deep that you stop reading the fine print, don't, because blood don't always mean loyalty. Sometimes it just means you bleed the same color when they cut you.